5. What do they need to look like? What do they need to be able to do? And keep that in mind, and then start backing up, figuring out what we need to do to get there. And I'd say the Education Committee has been pretty good about it, and they've said, you know, let's work on that. So they haven't been overly prescriptive. They've done a very good job of killing most of the 200+ bills that they've dealt with this session, because they want to take some time to back up and really sort of look at this from a high level and think about how we align state policy to move us in this sort of new direction. So, I said I didn't want to give a presentation. That probably was a little bit of a presentation. But that's just sort of giving you some of my thinking. I work in Augusta. I live in Rockport, so I have an hour drive each way, a little less. So it's got a lot of good thinking time in there to sort of think about this kind of stuff. So I've been trying to get some things down. And like I said, with the legislative session wrapping up, I think we will have some time to sit down and sit down with stakeholders and start thinking about how we do this thing that I think we need to do. So what I want to get from you, though, is some feedback. If we're going to do some transformational things, obviously there are pieces about our schools that we want to preserve, that we don't want to see go, that are important to us, that we can't envision schools of the future not having or not being like. So we need to hear about that, because as we start thinking about what are these schools going to look like, what are they going to be like, we want to be sure that the key pieces that make our schools are still there. But the other part is there's some things that need to change. I know there's things that need to change in the department. There are things that need to change across the board. So I need some feedback on what's not working. You know, I have heard from parents about narrowing of the curriculum, testing, some of those other issues. The kindergarten. You know, these little tykes coming in for pre-kindergarten screenings are being told they got to go to summer school before kindergarten to get their skill levels up so they're ready for kindergarten. Because we're now doing in kindergarten what we used to do in first grade. We've moved it all down the scale, and parents are like, what are you doing to these kids? So I'm getting a lot of that. So I'd love to hear more about that. And then also, you know, what's the role for the department? What do you want the state to do? What can we do? What's the right role for us? And so I'm going to sort of leave it at that, I guess. I pulled the chair here so I can sit and take some notes. So I'm going to sit down, and we do have a mic, although this is kind of a small room, and I don't think we need to worry about that, but it's there if you need it. And I'm just going to sort of throw the floor open and see if we can get a good discussion going, and we'll see what comes up. Yes, sir? Start right in the front row.
I'll start off. I'm Richard Rees from Westport Island, out of RSU 12. We started our RSU effort. We had a budget at that time, which is in today's dollars, so 2008, 2009 dollars. In today's dollars, it's $30 million. Our budget for 2011, 2012 is going to be $25.5. In the meantime, we've lost $3.1 million in state subsidy. So to me, consolidation is working, and we're doing it by you know, getting rid of inefficiencies that are in there. And you know, looking at your website, one of the things that just constantly turns me off is there's statistical data in there that doesn't do me any good. You know, yeah. And you know, what I'm looking
if you're lucky, you can find the statistical data on the website. So you're doing pretty well, actually.
What I'm looking for is help in looking to where we can go with technology. Because one of the things that I see is technology is a real support system for the whole education system. You know, what they've done with neuroscience and looking at the brain functions of how children learn and being able to bring that to the classroom teacher. You know, those are the kinds of things that I see very important. And yep. The more we can cut the cost of other things, right, and have some money to be able to effectively use technology to improve student achievement, you know, I think there has to be a real strong focus.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
My name is Gloria Del Sandro. I'm the principal of the Bonaway School, Bonaway Island.
Please stand so we can.
Yep.
All right. Hi, I'm Gloria Del Sandro. I'm the principal of the Bonaway School on Bonaway Island, and I think that my 10 years of living out on the island have helped me see things in a simpler way. I don't think we need money per se. We're a K-12 school. We get about 171 kids there, and these teachers are busting a hump every day doing exactly what you're speaking
exactly,
of.
yeah.
And I got to tell you that, I don't tell my superintendent this or anyone. Don't give me money. I need time.
Yeah. Yep.
And to get that time, I think a real shift in the way people see school rather than a 7:50 to 2:45 day, a longer day or flex time in the day. Mostly just time, a 4-day school week, you give the teachers a day to work and see the improvement that the kids are going to get, the quality of the programs they're going to get. I really think that considering that and support from that, from the department would really go a long ways. There's a lot of talent in these schools and they just don't have time to figure out.
Yeah, no, and I think this is, I don't know if I need this or not, but no, I mean, that's something that's pretty consistent in the research. And when you go into these districts that have done this sort of transformational stuff, it's been a time crunch. It's just time after school, early release days, those kinds of things. Because, when you talk about changing, the kind of transformation we're talking about, and you read Inevitable or you read some of these books about these transformational pieces, it is talking about how the job of teaching has to change. It's not the old, like I was up here, sort of the front of the room, and you're sort of running the show and all. Remember what?
A little different.
I mean, it really is when you go into these classrooms, these standards-based classrooms, these proficiency-based classrooms. It's a different model for how teachers are doing their work, and to move to a different type of grading scale, and to move to tracking kids on standards, and you're meeting the standard here, but you're back here, and watching how these teachers have come up with this stuff in Gray New Gloucester in the elementary school, and how the kids have this thing where the different standards are on this long sheet of paper, and the kids have clothespins to move down the paper when they've mastered the standards, so the kids all know which kid has met this standard and who they can go to for help, because that kid is, I mean, it's, trying to think about how do we make this work. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of time.
Especially for small schools.
And for small schools too, yeah. And so somehow when we start talking about resources, it's how do you free up time for teachers to get, not only in their classroom, but in each other's classroom, and to really look at instructional practice. How do you make sure that building administrators can focus their time on looking at instructional practice and curriculum and not worrying about the bus and this and the roof and all of that kind of stuff, and are really instructional leaders? And then how do you provide time for the superintendents to focus their efforts on providing resources to all of the people, their educators in their buildings, to get that job done? And of course, the department is at the sort of top of that ladder, and our job is to pull all the stuff off the tops of the superintendents, so that to free them up to do their jobs, and instead, sort of what I get is you're up there doing this kind of thing down on top, and it sort of pushes down through the whole system. So, I think that's a key piece, and helping with data management. I think there's some roles that we can play there to sort of lift some time burden off people all through the whole system.